Alright, the new Evolve Youthberk ride line is here being rebuilt, so let's begin. Here's the starter, Unsouled Eyes Youth. You don't actually need to run this one, but I will go for it just for matching ride line. In which we go to the grade 1 with K Power, Squire of Spear Strikes Youth, which has the skill of Auto when rolled upon by the grade 2 Sorrow Ardent Knight Youth. Cost Soul Blast 1, look at top 5 cards of your deck to choose up to 1 card from among them. If it's Youthberk, goes to your hand. If it's a grade 2 or less unit, call it to rearguard. Very similar to the original one, the only difference is that it searches from top 5 instead of top 3. So already this is just a huge improvement just because there's more cards that you can look from the top. In which we go to the grade 2 with 10k power, Sorrow Ardent Light Youth. With the skill of Auto when rolled upon by a RevolDress unit, cost Energy Blast 3, choose a grade 2 or greater card from your drop zone and put it to your hand. Like the original grade 2 except uses energy, which is of course better because the deck doesn't really use energy anyway, and the original requires Counter Blast, which your opponent can always damage deny you. And now it's time to rebuild to Youthberk Skyfall Arms Rebuild, which is the grade 3 with 13 power and the skill is has the RevolDress ability, so at the end of battle attack you perform one of the following. Choose a Revolform from your hand and ride at a stand with a drive -2, or you can Counter Blast 1 to choose a Revolform from the drop zone and ride at a stand with a drive -2. This is a huge difference to the original because the original one only does it from hand, and being able to do it from the drop zone even if it costs a Counter Blast is pretty nice since it's just basically a backup option if you need it. But the second skill is Auto when rolled upon during the battle phase, cost discard a card from your hand, choose one of your Vanguards, and change its drive to 1 into the end turn. Yep, now your Revolforms have direct drive checks from this card alone. You don't even need to use Sequana anymore because of this. And of course, if you combine it with other stuff like Drive +1 with it, they'll become Twin Drive. And then from the last skill, Count, when this card would be written from a Revolform, aka the end phase ability from the RevolDress, to become back the base form, this unit rolled upon is bound instead of being put to soul. So basically, when you ride back to this grade 3, you're gonna bind the Revolform, which is actually a bit of a difference to the original because the original one keeps in the soul instead of binding it, but for the new Revolform, it does want bind copies, so I do get why they're doing this. But if your variant is very soul heavy, this might suck a bit. But there are huge ups and downs comparing this to the original. So first off, the upsides is that now you can RevolDress from the drop zone, which is of course very huge, along with the guaranteed drive check for your Vanguard. But a downside is that you now no longer have a main phase consistency search like the original. That one can actually build up boards in comparison to this one. And sure, it's been replaced with the drive check, but sometimes the main phase call is actually more important than the drive check, especially since you have a support card to give you drive checks. And the other part is that the Revolform is now bound instead of kept in soul, which depending on the type of deck, mainly full blasts, this could actually hurt a bit because you do want to keep those Revolforms in soul. And speaking of full blast, you can still experiment with full blast with this, since technically you can still run the full blast stuff with this. But overall, it's a pretty cool new Youthberk Rebuilt, mainly for the RevolDress for the drop zone. And of course, since we cannot have a new Youthberk without a new Revolform, we got Youthberk Revolform Exists, which is of course also grade 3 with 13 power, and the skill is that when it's placed on Vanguard by the RevolDress ability, perform all the following abilities. Cost Energy Blast 3, choose one of your rear guards and stand it, and then all your front row units get plus 10k power in end turn, but if your bind zone has a Revolform, aka through Rebuilt ability, plus 20k instead, and if your bind zone has a copy of itself, crit plus 1 in end turn. And of course, at the end of the turn, you choose a RevolDress ability card from your soul and ride it as rest. Definitely a Revolform meant to be played with Rebuilt because of the bind zone part, but you can still technically play this with original Youthberk and also mainly your first RevolDress as well, because you do still have the restanding rear guard giving you a 5th attack now. That's something that Youthberk never has, along with extra power to the front row, just not as much as full blast unless you manage to put this at full power. But once at full power, it's technically stronger than full blast, although full blast still has some other better stuff like removal and the extra drive, but for the rebuilt deck, this is definitely perfect for it. And into the rest of the support, we start off with running Beast Fang Savrig, which is a grade 1k power, and the skill is Counter Rear Guard. If your bind zone has a Revolform, it gets the intercept ability, can do it from the back row, and plus 2k power, active on your opponent's turn as well. You don't even have space to run this, and this isn't even good. But next card, surprisingly a rare, is actually pretty decent. Knight of Rebulking Dogaric, which is a grade 2 with 10k power, and the skill. Auto when placed on rear guard, cost Counter Blast 1, look at top 5 cards of your deck to choose up to 1 Youthberk from among them, reveal it and put it in your hand, of course shuffle your deck. With the second skill, Auto Rear Guard, when this card attacks, if your Vanguard is at least a grade 3 Youthberk, plus 5k power in end turn. It's basically like Schneisel, but it doesn't get the 5k power buff from the search with it, along with not giving the 5k power buff to your Vanguard. But it's still pretty good because not only it searches, but it gets 5k power per attack, meaning that if you restand this with Exist, it gets another 5k on top of it. So depending on which variant you play, I do recommend running this. And then Armor Breaking Knight Dorrigan, which is great too with taking power on the skills. Count rearguard during turn, if your bind zone has a Revolform plus 5k. With the second skill of Auto Rearguard, when this card is stood by the ability of your Youthberk, cost count boss 1, draw a card. And then until the end of the turn, when your opponent would call cards from hand to Guardian for this battle for the attack, they must use at least 2 cards at the same time to guard. Not sure if this is worth running, even if it's only meant for Exists, because Counterblast is starting to get pretty heavy, even though this is still not too bad to run as a 2-up probably. But you can only play this with the Rebuilt deck though. And finally, here's the secret rare, pretty cool. Kinda wish that there's a Revolform version of it as well. And before we go, finally we got set 9 revealed with a new Platina Ezel. I'm very excited for that, along with a cover card for Youthquake as well, for main character's ride line, which I'm a little surprised. We also got another character's ride line in this set as well for Youthquake, and a new looking Neo Nectar Magician ride line, along with Sybilt's true form. Yes, that's right, Sybilt is getting his true form in this set. I'm excited for that. So meaning that we also have his companion here, which I'm very excited for because Sybilt's true form is one of those cards I've been asking for. And then next week we got the second Miss Stitch, probably a flashback episode, which is probably why they're only doing this. And so that's it for this, for the new Youthberk Rebuilt ride line, along with Booster Set 9 reveal. What do you guys think of it? New Youthberk Rebuilt ride line? I am very happy, since not only that Youthberk got rebuilt and gained more support, but we also got a new Revolform for it, which is also pretty awesome. The only thing is it worth running full blast with it, since it is going to be a spacing problem at that point if you're going to play with full blast, but it is still possible. And it's also nice that you can combine old Revolforms with it, so full blast is still playable with it, but it's just debatable if you want to run it or not with the spacing. As for set 9, I'm just very excited, mainly for Platina Ezel along with Sybilt's true form. Still find it strange that the Blood and Glory Maelstrom were in set 6 instead of being in here, but I'll take what we got, and we finally got Platina Ezel. But on that, that's it for this, and see you all next time.